What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Salty Runback, here to be your weekly intake of North American League of Legends, and more importantly, welcome to 2025, and welcome to Season 3 of SR. Yes, we had one episode last season in 2025. We did our little New Year's special and everything like that, but we are here with a brand new look, a brand new era here in SR. We got a lot of fun stuff to talk about, especially the start of the LTA and League of Legends esports season.
That's one.
My name is Grapes, joined alongside Hawk. Yeah, we're going to have to get used to that, Hawk. How are you doing today?
I was telling Kangas, I'm doing great, by the way. I was telling Kangas, I'm like, dude, I need to see you and Captain Flowers like passing 20s backstage at the LTA for like who messes up saying LCS the most times, right? Oh my god, yeah, it's gonna take some getting used to getting over to LTAN. I think that's what I'm gonna call it, is LTAN.
LTAN?
Yeah.
Oh god.
I'll be Mr. LTAN and LTAS, just because it feels in some way a little bit tongue in cheek to call it LTAN, because we already poked fun at the fact that maybe the rebrand not exactly our favorite thing ever. But speaking of our favorite things ever and great rebrands, Grapes. Look at how cool we look. Oh my god. Shout out Leanne for
boxes. There's more of us on the screen, so I know that's what all of you
can see more of my dirty
wanted.
room.
Yeah, exactly. A big shout out to Leanne, our Cyanidans, who helped us with all of this, including our new logo, our new podcast assets, as well as a lot more cool stuff like that intro that you just saw at the top of the video. Couldn't have done anything related to this without her. And it's not just the assets that have changed, it's the format of the show as well as a couple of other things as well. You might have noticed that over the course of the off season we started doing maybe shorter episodes, where instead of doing two parts, the headlines and then the quote unquote main part, we were doing like a headlines only episode here, a two-part, like a long form episode here, an interview here, and that's going to be the format for this season. We're going to be releasing 2 times a week. The Tuesday episodes will be the headlines, where we'll be going through the top storylines in the NACL, NACL Open Qualifier, and CLOL, and of course anything else kind of just adjacent to the space. And then on Thursday, we'll have our more specialized episode. We'll dive deep into something, conduct a little activity, or interview a player, just like you would see at the end of our SR videos. Just a way to get you guys more consistent content across multiple days throughout the week, instead of having to just log in and take it all in at the same time.
Yeah, we've always been really well renowned for our consistent uploads, but this time it's actually going to happen for real, Tuesdays and Thursdays.
We're
going to
try
that. Grapes, not only have we changed the upload schedule, but there is more salt to go around for everybody. We have a Patreon now. If you think anything that we do is valuable, and you've ever been a part of the SR journey and want to support us financially, it really would mean the world. We've launched a Patreon. We have 4 new shows that we are excited to unveil. 2 of them will be weekly. 2 of them will be monthly. We're also going to just kind of upload like anything else we feel like on the Patreon as well. Not only that, you'll get exclusive member access to the higher tiers of our Discord, which you might remember when we launched the Discord a little over a year ago and sort of nothing really happened with it. Well, we have completely retooled it. We've revamped it, and it is looking real swanky right now. So make sure you join the Discord. Link for both that and the Patreon are in the description. You do not need to be a Patreon subscriber to join the Discord. In fact, you're highly encouraged to still come and hang out with us. But if you are a patron, you'll get access to a couple perks, like, maybe you can help us pick our headlines for future episodes. So between our Tuesday, Thursday uploads and then our Patreon content, you can have Salty Runback Tuesday through Friday. And then, oh my God, we arrive at the weekend. Yeah. NA League of Legends continues. It'll be just like it's 2022 again, when we used to have 6 days of League a week.
Except it's all run by us.
It's all Salty Runback, and that's the best part about it.
and we'll have our monthly releases, which I assume we'll probably release on Monday, just because that's like when there's an open day in the schedule most of the time. Those will be coming out kind of more on the sporadic side, but we have a game show that Hawk's going to be running in the $10 tier, as well as just an episode of us kind of talking about whatever we want. That'll be called Shooting the Salt. That'll also be a Monday release. So keep your eyes on that, as well as, of course, our regular cadence of Tuesday through Friday in the extra salt tier on Patreon, the $5 tier. Links to everything will be down below. We have changed all of our headings and everything like that to Salty Runback NA. So no longer Salty Runback Pod, Salty Runback NA, encapsulating more of North America as a whole.
If you're already subscribed to us here on YouTube, or if you're a follower on Twitch or whatever, you're still good. Like, it's all the same accounts. But if you're not, make sure to drop us a follow. It really would mean the world. Make sure to check out the Patreon again. It would really mean a lot if you're able to support us. And if you're not, no worries. You're a part of the Salty Runback journey, even if you've made it this far. So we appreciate you all nonetheless. Grapes, we're really looking up this year. We're trying to graduate from just a podcast, but to a full-blown production company. I tweeted this earlier today, but we're going to try to become NA's #1 esports production company, one grain of salt at a time. Hopefully y'all can take that grain of salt with us. But I think without any further ado, we can start getting on into our first real episode of 2025. Yeah, okay, we had the New Year's episode. Look, Salty Runback took a leap year this year, okay? This is the first episode of 2025.
Exactly. And before we go, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's free, for sure. Leaving a like, things like free. That. If we get to 1,000 subscribers, we can start to, really uplift that side of our YouTube as well. I know we're pretty far from that right now, but that could be like a lofty goal for the end of 2025 potentially or beyond. So if you're not already subscribed and you do watch us, make sure to click that button down below. But let's move in to our headlines. Remember, just headlines here on our Tuesday episodes, and we're going to start off with the upcoming Open qualifier, which will be starting who knows when. We don't know really just yet, but it seems like the teams don't really know either, because they're starting to release their rosters in preparation for this upcoming tournament. Since our time, there have been a bunch of Open qualifier teams that have been announced. However, still a lot of teams, still a lot of players that are free agents and have not been signed to a single team. So I guess the headline here, Hawk, is talking about some of these free agents, and we're going to try to build the best possible roster with all of the players that are still free agents. Who do you got for us here?
Yeah, man, dude. Oh, my God. There's a lot of free agents, too, by the way. This offseason has been really interesting to watch if you're a fan of Tier 2, Tier 3, which, by the way, is why it's such a bummer that we've heard so little about this OQ, because I think, with the just 3-4 spots up for grabs right now, that is so hype, right? Real opportunity for players to just promote directly in. But regardless, because of that as well, there are at least 3 spots in every role that, were used to be filled by NACL players that now, those players just have not been picked up yet. And I fully expect a good portion of them, should they, want to actually play in Tier 3, should get picked up by rosters that are looking for those promotion spots. But, a lot of them just haven't. Really, the one exception is actually kind of mid lane, and that's just because Roamer, presumably not coming back, although maybe he does. And then Toasty and Spyrax are playing on the same team now, right? So that one kind of got truncated a little bit. But every other role has at least 3 players. AD carry, there's 6 ADCs that are nuts, that are just teamless right now. And we're hoping to see get picked up. We'll say a lot of them are on collegiate teams, which is exciting for collegiate. We'll get into that a little bit later. But Grapes, as far as the question at hand, building the best roster out of the players available, and maybe this goes into our next headline too, a team that maybe can contend against Nightmare. I'm just going to come straight out. Wei Air Yusin is a free agent, and the import rules have changed, Grapes. The import rules have changed. So, you can have imports in Tier 3. So, I'm taking, I think, Yusin, Yukino, going for the YY top lane, top jungle. Let's take either Sudzy or Young. I think either one's fine. Sudzy may be a bit of a safer pick, but Young a bit more of an explosive pick if you want to play super hard through solo lanes. I think I'm taking Lens, who is a nuts player that has been one of the more publicly teamless Tier 2 players in the space right now. Someone that Grapes, by the way, we thought could be playing in the LTA this split. And then I think I'm taking, Daption's a free agent. You have Diamond, who is a free agent, super experienced. That is a team that I'd be afraid to play in the NACL.
Yeah, and the interesting thing to note is that we actually have not gotten finalized rosters from CCG or Supernova as well in the NACL. So some of those guys could be over there. The other one is, technically Winthrop hasn't announced their actual roster, but we see their CLOL team. I think the plan for them is going to be running their CLOL roster in NACL this time around.
Which is a run back, by the way, for anyone that's curious. It should be Denethor, Trickster, Sword, Mobility, and Chookies. So it's basically the team that they've been playing for the last 3 years now, which I actually think is pretty cool for Winthrop.
Yeah. Okay, I think you definitely picked a good roster. Like definitely some people that could make it in the NACL.
I got some shooters.
That's a team that could qualify for sure. I'm gonna try to pick a team of players that are not actually the ones that you picked. So we're gonna go down the line a different way.
I get first dibs. So
yeah, I'm gonna go Philip. He's somebody who was on the top 2 team in the NACL last season. They made it all the way to the finals of the Americas Tier 2 tournament. I'm gonna take Kryra in the jungle. I'm gonna go with Young. If you were gonna go with
I'll
Srtty.
take Srtty. You can take Young.
And then the last one. I mean, I could just go Array and Daption again because that's the Dragoons Goons bottom lane that did so well.
Didn't they for fun a little too hard though?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I guess there's a lot of really good ADCs, by the way. Instinct also a free agent. Rockboom also a free agent. Link, Spawn, list goes on and on.
I will say Philip and Daption both. Like, I feel like them together on a team might be terrorists, Grapes. They are both such
they
known
played They played together in spring, I believe. This last spring on Fear. So that was a team that existed.
Wait, were they on the same team at the same time?
Yeah, because I think Philip's been with Fear since he moved from FlyQuest 3 splits ago. So
am I cooked?
I'm like 90% sure they were actually on that Fear roster in spring together.
That's really funny if they were, and I just forgot
they
that.
were. Philip and Daption.
Wow. Dude, I mean, those guys are like just fucking known senders, which I love. Both of them very funny people too.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, all that to say, a lot of good talent still available. Even if these guys don't find the NACL spot that they're looking for, like just like we've seen with some of the other OQ organizations that we'll talk about a little bit later, very possible for any of these guys to just link up and qualify into the NACL themselves this split. Once they get there, they're gonna have to register with a business or something to make sure that they will be able to stay in there. But I think proving yourself by getting that spot in the NACL through the OQ, definitely possible for any number of these players that are still available.
So Grapes, this is basically our transition to the second headline because I feel like these two kind of go together. Of can anyone actually beat Nightmare, right? Because we've seen how good that team is. It's Dokla. Wow, wait, sorry, it just flew out of my brain. It's Dokla, Kenvi,
Bradley, and then it's Meech and Breezy.
Thank you. Yeah, Dokla, Kenvi, Bradley, Meech, and Breezy, which is like a fucking insane roster. That team could win NACL, right? But kind of setting that aside, the question is, can anyone actually beat that team? And Grapes, I think before we answer, can anyone beat Nightmare, do you think that out of the rosters we just talked about, or like the some of the free agents we just talked about, could you put together a team that either A, could beat Nightmare, or B, is at the very least stronger than any of the other OQ teams? Because I mean, this will kind of tip my answer to the Nightmare question. I think the answer is yes. I think you actually have a team of free agents that is theoretically stronger on paper than anything we see besides Nightmare right now.
I think stronger is a bold word to put out there, but I think even is definitely more where I would lean. I think you could put together a roster out of those 5 to make something that's rather similar to what Nightmare is dealing with right now, because they've got, again, a team that we have collectively said could probably finish top 3 or 4.
Nightmare is in a whole new ballpark, I think,
in NACL.
compared to everybody. Yeah.
So in terms of, is there a team out of those free agents that could be better than Nightmare? But
what about better than everybody else? What about better than the pack?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I think Nightmare is still in a league of their own. But, I think out of these free agents, you could get a team that is still better than every other team.
That I can get on board with. And that, I think, is a good transition to talk about some of the teams that have been announced.
Yeah.
Not a ton, because, of course, we still don't exactly know when the OQ is or any of those details just yet at the time of recording. But
which is awesome, by the way. I'm so happy about that.
I hope, you know how we always do this thing where we record an episode, it gets posted, and then immediately some news comes in that just makes everything outdated.
Yeah. Benefit of the double upload.
To God that happens for us here. We release on Tuesday, and then Tuesday we get the full OQ announcement. That would be spectacular.
The worst timeline is that they announce this on Thursday evening after we drop our quote unquote part 2 episode.
I could definitely see that happening as well, but I feel like they normally try to shoot for earlier in the week.
Yeah.
So, cross my fingers. Hey, Whoopley, if you're listening, we would love that to happen. If you're holding your finger over that publish button, now's the best time to do it. But anyway, let's get into some of these.
If you need anyone to proofread it for you ahead of time.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
so happy to do that. Oh, I should check the LCS press server and see if there's a press release that I haven't seen.
Probably not at this point. But let's get into some of these OQ rosters that have been announced already. There's been Tempest Gaming, which is Hoarder, Kisno, Darkwings, Aaron, Minwi. I think that is a very solid roster. Seeing Minwi switch to support is going to be very interesting.
It's an interesting one.
Respawn has Lawrence, Chad, Shochi, Sushi, and Mixture. And Chimek, which is short for chicken and beer in Korean, which is a really fun thing. Their logo is
not know
really
that.
Cute. Their roster consists of Cozy, City Witty, and Goo. Goo is going to be subbing in for the first part of the qualifiers when City, I think, is boot camping in Korea. Ariandel, Inori B, and Kim Down. So those are the ones that have been announced so far. We talked about Apex last week, another roster that is available. But out of those teams, I don't necessarily see any of them better than Nightmare.
Yeah.
I could see any of them, though, potentially being that second or third or even fourth spot. I don't know what exactly that's going to look like in terms of qualifying into the NACL.
So, as I've sort of already alluded to, I think Nightmare is untouchable for these teams. I will go on record right now to say that unless another crazy team is announced, which, as we've sort of mentioned, I think you can put together a team of free agents that is like a theoretical number 2 and can compete with Nightmare, like stronger than what rosters we just talked about, right? So I say this with a bit of an asterisk, but if these are like the other of the top 4 teams in the qualifier, I think Nightmare doesn't drop a game. That's the bet I'm going to make. I think Nightmare is that insane compared to the field. And the only reason I say that is like, look, Tempest, Respawn, Chimek, great players on these teams. A lot of talent. But they all do still have like a player or two that I see as a bit more of an unrefined or more of like just like a tier 3 caliber player, right? And that is the biggest worry I have for all these teams. And I think it's great that they're mixing in, for example, the biggest one, Respawn, that has this Lawrence, Chad, Shochi core, very experienced players that have all like proven their mettle at this level multiple times, paired with Sushi and Mixture, who, in my opinion, is the bottom lane that like made their name in 2024 and now has this amazing opportunity, right? So, and they get to continue playing together, which I think is so great for them. So that is awesome, but I think it does mean that they're just not the strongest team on paper, right? So, I'm really interested to see how Nightmare plays in this qualifier. I'm interested to see what other teams come up. Grapes, I do want to ask you, out of the 3, who do you believe is the strongest? If we don't think one of them can beat Nightmare, is there a second place?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I want to push back a little bit on the sentiment that it's like a guarantee they're not going to drop a game. We have seen instances.
I don't think it's a guarantee. That's
games.
that's the spicy bet I want to make, is that I don't think Nightmare will drop a game. But now that Lights of Fire on those teams
disagree
has to
with
beat
you.
them, so.
I do think Nightmare will drop a game to one of these teams, because I think that even though you do mention that there are unknown quantities on some of these rosters and things like that, I think on any given day, some of these players could step up and be really good. Notably on that Tempest roster, which is going to be my pick for the strongest out of the 3. I do think that Respawn is very good. However, this Kisno, Darkwings, Aaron, Core in the
you love your Slew boys.
Lane.
I get it.
I do love my Slew boys. Hey, Darkwings and Aaron have proven themselves to be
they're pretty good.
Mid-tier NACL talents at worst. And then you also have Minwi, who's role swapping over to support, which I think is actually something that he's been wanting to do for a while. And actually,
he's always had a big champ pool. So yeah. I actually think of all the AD carries in the scene to do it, like Minwi is the one that I'm least worried about.
No, and he's put out LFTs where he said like AD/support/ I think even top lane at times. So he's very flexible. I think will slot in fine. Hoarder also, has had that big time in Korea. Did the the Sido Combine. I actually don't know what exactly happened with the 5 that were selected. I don't know if they're in Korea right now or not. I don't remember exactly
back
right
now. I want to say it was basically like a winter break thing, because I know some of those kids are in college, but I don't know exactly.
Regardless, I think Tempest is the best here. Do you have Respawn?
I have Respawn.
I think that's the other.
But I think it's really close. I guess like my biggest thing is I think Jury's still really out for me on Hoarder. I think 2024 was sort of Hoarder's moment, and he didn't really seize it. I don't think he had a bad year. I was not particularly impressed by his growth, and I think this top side of Lawrence, Chad, and Shochi, like, they just feel like they're too good to count out. And then I think Sushi Mixture, like, they've got that X factor in the bottom lane. I do think Mixture is the best support of these three. Yeah, I'm not worried about Minui lane swapping, but Mixture is insane, man. Like, I think this kid is so good. And then Kim Down's a good support, but yeah, I think Mixture's got that dog in him. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I definitely can see the world where Respawn is also.
I do
good.
think. Oh, go ahead.
I could see right now, without seeing the rest of the OK rosters, which we don't know who they are, I would currently put money on. No, I wouldn't, like, maybe not put money, but I would bet that Tempest and Respawn would be getting two of those spots.
Yeah.
The third one, I don't know necessarily about Chimik just yet. I feel like they're very similar to the Pulsar team from last summer, with Ariandel on it, and then some like other really solid players around him. But that is kind of where I'm at with that team, and that's kind of my general thoughts of those three rosters specifically.
I was about to say, I think Chimik is the kind of team, Grapes, where I think like in a normal qualifier that we would have had in like specifically 2023 or 2024 when it was like a little bit weaker, right? I think in one of those qualifiers, Chimik is the kind of team that we would like generally expect to hit top four, right? They'd be like a fourth or fifth seed.
Yep.
But I think my assumption is as we start to see a couple more teams get announced that are at this upper echelon, I do think this team is probably going to be out on the outside looking in, or at the very least, they're going to have their work cut out for them, right? So obviously great players on this team, and I think this is a cool opportunity and for a Noribi in specific, who I think is, it's fair to say, the most unproven player on this team. But we'll see how they're able to compete with some of these big dogs. But yeah, I do think like none of, depending on what kind of rosters get announced, I would actually go as far to say I don't think any team is necessarily safe except for Nightmare.
Yeah, we definitely think Nightmare is going to make it. The question is kind of the other ones right now. So keeping an eye on the rest of the OQ rosters as they get announced. But let's transition over to a different aspect of the developmental landscape, and that is CLOL, the Collegiate League of Legends season. We do know that is starting this Saturday, January 25th. And speaking of, if you want to get more news and updates and more content about CLOL, you can check out our Patreon. One of the shows that we will be doing every Friday is called CLOL Office Hours with me. It's kind of just an event session for me to talk about anything that I want leading into the upcoming week of CLOL games. We got a really fun episode planned for our premiere. Will be live on YouTube as well as Patreon, just so you can get a little bit of a sneak peek of what to expect. And then from there on out, all of them will be available to the $5 a month extra salt tier. So self-promo away. Let's talk about CLOL more in specific. We are beginning the regular season, which is a very new format. If you're not aware, they're going from what was a group stage for the last couple of years to now being a Swiss 32 team bracket to the top 16 teams, moving on to a modified double elim bracket in the conference playoffs. Those will last for 5 weeks. Obviously, partner conferences going to look a little bit different, but we could talk about just the regular season as a whole, because I think this is a very exciting era of CLOL where even the regular season is going to be very exciting.
Yeah.
Talking about that, Hawk, out of all the conferences that will be conducting their regular seasons over the next five weeks or more, which conference are you most excited to watch in terms of teams qualifying and fighting their way into the top 16?
Yeah, dude. Oh my God. I'm really excited for CLOL this year. As you mentioned, the regular season, only 5 weeks. Tim Dakar, the madman, after hearing all the complaints about Swiss in Tier 3, decided to bring it to CLOL. But it's way better for CLOL because it actually puts higher tier teams against each other much, much, much sooner. And I think conference play is going to be so much better, as you sort of alluded to. Only a 5-week regular season, but which one's going to be the best? I think without a doubt it's East Conference, because Grapes, if we look at the teams, and maybe if, friends of the show, take a look at the CLOL Hub power rankings that are going to come out in the next couple days, they'll get an idea of this too. In East, this has always been the conference with the most parity, but literally every single one of the top dogs, save for St. Clair, who got stronger, everybody else looks weaker this year, which I just think brings the parity so much closer because East also has the highest population of teams that just have like random challenger, like apex tier players that we've never heard of and don't really play comp outside of just like their school time, right? Which is cool. So
Yeah.
I think there's like a completely wide open door in East here, especially because seeding is going to be so important there as we start talking about like what are the matchups moving towards getting those now 4 auto bids available. If you make semifinals for your regional playoffs, you're in to top 32, right? So I think when we start like looking at what that's all going to be, I think this East regular season is going to be fucking nuts.
So, okay. Do you want to talk about St. Clair quick, or do you want me to go through the East Conference a little bit first? What do you think's the best thing to do? I could take you down one path or the other. I got 2 things I want to talk about here.
Okay, I'll mention St. Clair really quick and why we think they're the best and got stronger, and then we can.
My take is that St. Clair didn't necessarily get stronger, and that is what makes East even more interesting right now. Because the changes that they made, if you're not aware, the roster for St. Clair College is Ricky LaFleur, Maddie, Flocon, League, LYG, and Miracle. The big changes they made, mid and 80 carry, Flocon and League in, and then Bakery Boy and Rock Boom out. I would argue that Rock Boom was such a big part of that team. And actually, Bakery Boy in that roster was a very good facilitator. I don't know too much about League, and I think honestly, like it's probably at best in my head right now going in a side grade. And I know that they have done pretty well in their fall tournaments and the like, but I'm not confident that this team is better than it was last year.
I'm gonna say so. They also, I don't think Ricky LaFleur is a starting top laner. I believe it's Sama, right?
Yeah. He's a sub. He's also on the team. I think he's also fine.
Yeah, they're both good. I think it's an upgrade because I do think Flocon, like Bakery Boy was fine on that St. Clair team, and like no shade at all. But I do think Flocon is actually one of the more exciting mid lane prospects that we have right now at the tier 3 level. I think this is huge coming in for this team, and I do think Lig is quite good. I've actually gotten to see tape on this player, and dude, in their like fall warm up series, he looked like the only player that was actually trying. So, obviously, I think there's actually a lot of truth to the statement I just had. So maybe not to be read into too much, but I'm actually not sure if he'll really be a downgrade over Rock Boom, if at all.
Interesting.
And so I think that is super interesting for the St. Clair team. At the very least, though, Grapes, they did not obviously get weaker because I do think it is fair to say that basically every other team in East lost somebody.
Yeah, I don't know how it depends on how highly you value a player like Loyal on Western, because I think that's like the loss that they had specifically.
And Mira, right?
Oh yeah. I mean,
so they lost both their mid and support. We just don't know who
though. They're replacing them with 2 other like challenger level
right.
players.
And we don't know if those players are going to be good, but it is still like that's a big change. Yeah, they didn't lose Dr. Calculus, Krakadon, or Lynx, which is huge. But
I think my take is that I don't know yet if St. Clair's gotten much worse or much better, and I don't know necessarily if Western's gotten that much worse. I mean, all that to say, I agree with you in that East is a very fun conference to watch.
It's a fucking shit show. That's the point.
And talking about that just for a little bit extra, in terms of the stakes of what the group stage or what this regular season actually holds, being 3-2 and being 4-1 in the Swiss bracket is a very big difference under the way that the regional playoffs are constructed. If you are 4-1 or better, you are guaranteed a spot in the double elimination portion of the conference championship. And if you are 3-2 or worse, there's some sort of seeding that determines where you end up, either in double elimination or single elimination. But you never want to put that up to chance. And so for all of these East Conference teams, finishing 4-1 is going to be absolutely massive. And when we look at who is here, I'm going to run through some of these rosters really quickly, but Toronto has, Little Frosty and Blue and some of their other players coming back. That's a full GM plus team. Western, as we mentioned, Calculus, Krakadon, and Lynx. A team like McMaster.
Tier 3 standout Calculus after playing in CLOL for 3 fucking years, by the way, decides to become the best top laner outside of the professional level in North America. That shit was crazy, bro.
Yeah, I mean, you also have, McMaster with a player like Hoarder, and I think Lunar is on this team. Boston
Yeah.
University, of course, with Samikin, Temple, who has Psycho, Waterloo with Onat, Inexhaustive, and some of those other players. UT Mississauga, I think, is going to be a big sleeper in this group. They have just a litany of talented players, including Munchie, who just joined their team, as well as AB, Drexel with Anori B. Stony Brook even has Keetong on it. So just in terms of tier 3 talent in this conference, this is the deepest out of any of them, and
Yeah,
that's why
easily.
this fight for the top 6 to guarantee yourself a spot in the double elim portion is going to be massive.
Yeah, I can't agree more, dude. I fucking there's so many good players in East. Oh my god, yeah, CLO's gonna be great. Just to give a shout out to the other conferences as well. I mean, NECC, it's only like an 8-team league, but 4 of them are like legitimate contenders for top 4 at the CLOL championship. You've got South that has some new teams coming in. OC still going to be hanging around. You've got a new SCAD roster that looks pretty decent, like maybe like a top 16 caliber team.
Yeah, I'll give a bat. I'll give a bat for South just because they're not going to be as deep or as competitive as East, but just the fact that we're going to see a lot of new rosters, specifically SCAD, as you mentioned. USF is going to be playing with Dragoon for this CLOL season.
There. Yeah.
So that's going to be mad hype, as well as Georgia State, who brought in Doubtful from Purdue Northwest. So there's a lot of new rosters, new look rosters that are going to be coming in and trying to face off against this like old guard of Florida, UT Austin, UT Dallas, etc. So even though we think that UST is going to be like the big favorite in this group or in this conference, I think that their regular season will still be fun to watch.
Yeah, I think the days of South being a complete one-team conference are maybe behind us, but obviously only time will tell. But Grapes, we should keep it moving for the sake of time. We've already hit over a half hour. We just got too damn much to talk about to start 2025. And this is probably the coolest headline of them all. Fuck it. We're going to talk about LTA, Grapes, because we have, me specifically, I have talked for so long on this podcast about how I want Moist Esports in North American League of Legends, and they did it in maybe the most shocking way possible. It is Moist x Shopify, the esports org that I think has actually been investing the most out of anybody in recent years in Shopify Rebellion, yet to really turn up too much in terms of like the League of Legends space yet, but they've definitely at least been, I think, trying, which I will give them a lot of credit for. And now they're partnered with Moist. I mean, Grapes, like, I don't think there's a ton to actually talk about substantively here. I just wanted to like take a minute to be like, this is fucking hype, no?
I'm mad that they're not going to be playing in the OQ. Just a little bit. I have a little bit of.
You want just a
Grapes,
little bit. I know you wanted Charlie.
It's not good for me.
I know you wanted us to be on Charlie and Ludwig's stream. I get it. We already had this guy's react to us.
Just a tad little bit of envy. That's all I have.
Yeah,
just a little bit.
I know your dream is to be on Ludwig's stream. I get
it. They've got better, bigger things. They got better, bigger things to do apparently than play in our little OQ. But
you think we could get Ludwig or Charlie to interview on Salty Runback?
Oh,
I mean, we're rebranded now. We're really
dream
official.
guest. Hey, Ludwig, if you're watching, I know you play more League these days. Doors always open.
If anyone's got a contact, let's know.
We'd be a terrible pairing. That would just not make sense at all for him to be on the show. But anyway, anyway.
I think it'd be great. I don't know what you're talking about.
Let's talk about this a little bit. Moist and Shopify, they actually have worked together in the past in Valorant. Their Valorant teams were actually merged together for the last couple of seasons, but it was more of like a partnership in the way that we saw, FlyQuest and Blue Otter and C9 more than it was, a more direct partnership. Now Ludwig and Charlie are co-owners of Shopify Rebellion. It's not just like, hey, our orgs are binding together for this one little league that we're playing in, and I think that's very exciting for the state of the league as a whole. Content orgs, influencer organizations, we've been talking about it for so long. We have Disguise now in the LTA. We now also have Moist in the LTA. I think that's going to do wonders for content. It's already done wonders for regions like the LEC, where they have for years been using influencers to fund their teams, and even beyond.
We're seeing the popularity of that.
Yeah. Even beyond Los Ratones, we're seeing things like Koi come out with I think that's Ebai's team, and then Kameto and KC and things like that. Yeah. So that is clearly a market that it works. Obviously, those influencers have already embedded themselves in the League of Legends esports space so much more, and so I'm excited to see what this new partnership has in store for what could be possible.
This might sound weird as well, but hear me out. Like, I feel like the value of having two influencer teams now in the LTA is like more than double what it would have been if it was just Disguise. Does that make sense? Because like if it's just Disguise, it's like, okay, that's the influencer team, right? All the fans of Disguise can root for that team. But now like you've got the kind of dueling brands a little bit. Like I said, when I was at Apex, LGS and Galen Center, like fucking Moist and Disguise, anytime they're on screen, that was the loudest that arena was. You know what I mean? And so I think the fact that like you have both of those brands in the fold, they can play against each other. They're both directly in the mix. Like I feel like it almost brings more legitimacy to having influencer brands in the space, and it's less of just like a one-off novelty. Does that like kind of make sense?
Yeah, no, definitely. I already feel like, I don't want to be throwing shots too early, but I feel like Riot missed a big opportunity here. They could have made the show match Ludwig versus Toast. I feel like that would have made so much sense and had the players like play with them.
I'm sure they're already cooking something for
some other
LCS
streamers.
Finals. You got to give them a little credit. Like this came
I get
kind of
it,
out of nowhere.
But
So-
that deal had to have been in the workings for some amount of time.
Sure,
And
yeah. I mean,
surely
Arsh,
they could have.
Apparently, Arsh knew about it a
figured
year
something
ago.
out.
So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They should have found some way to kick it off. I love Kobe and Azael. We're gonna be seeing them the rest of the split, man.
Kobe
Man,
was so
that
excited when he won, though, dude. Did you see that? That was really funny.
It was without a doubt a very entertaining show match. I'm just saying, opportunity to have
okay.
Ludwig versus Toast up there.
I know
Bring
they're
in
cooking.
Ludwig calls in Cutie to play bot lane with him, and Toast brings in Scara, Legend, or
they fly
gotta do something.
Gadriel over to play in the show match with them.
No, yeah, there a lot of opportunities there. I really hope the LTA takes advantage of it. I hope that Charlie and Toast are co-streaming the LTA. That is going to bring a lot of eyes to our space. And don't forget about us down here, Toast. I know you. I know that. You're with the big boys
we
now.
are the biggest fans of your team. I'm just saying.
But yeah,
So.
we got our eyes on you. Maybe towards the end of the year. Let's wrap up this show with perhaps a send off to some of the players that we got to talk about on Salty Runback for 2 years at this point. New era for us, potentially new era for both ScaryJerry and Srtty, who will be kicking off their LTA journeys this upcoming weekend. Srtty playing against Team Liquid in the first round of a GSL group stage. ScaryJerry and Disguise playing against 100 Thieves. Which rookie are you more excited to see in their first week?
Dude, I'm so excited for both these guys, man, because I think Jerry, I hold a special place in my heart because this is a player that had his rise in 2022 CLOL with Converse, right? And sort of ever since then, like Grapes, you and I have both been very directly a part of this player's story for his basically entire journey, right? And I think that's very special to me because there's not as many players that I can say that about. Like someone like APA, I can say that I was there for a lot of his journey. Even Srtty, I can say that I was there for a lot of his journey, but not all of it. And so I'm very excited that there's this player that I've been there the entire time with. Sometime in early 2023, I said I think this player is going to be in the LCS one day. Well, I was wrong. He's in the LTA. But like, so that's so cool to me. But then also, I do think Srtty is just the player that like this has been coming, right? A lot of expectations surrounding him. We've already seen what a player like Calist has sort of been able to do in the LEC just with the hype around him and like kind of mechanical plays. And I'm hoping for Srtty's sake he's able to play well. But even if not, like I just think this is so cool for him. Grape, speaking of the show match as well, did you see when they were doing the draw show when Jat was like, does anyone want to play Team Liquid? And everyone was like, nope. And then Srtty was like, I don't mind. And then Team Liquid draws Dig, and he's like, dude, I can beat Impact. Like, fuck yeah.
No,
I'm like,
I was
that's
going to bring that up, actually.
It was awesome. Like, Srtty was so confident. I thought he came off really well in that moment. And so I'm very excited.
I loved what Dig have done with this guy. If judging from all the stories that have come out,
making him the guy,
roster
dude.
announcements, like he is their franchise player now.
Fuck yeah.
He was the first player that they signed. He had a big impact on the other players that they brought in to fill in the roster. And when it came time to select one of the 5 to be in that show match, guess who they turned to? Not one of the veterans, like a Tomo or something who's been around for a little bit longer. They turned towards Srtty to be the new face of Dignitas, and I'm really excited for him to get that opportunity. Surely it's going to come with a lot of pressure, specifically playing as Impact in the first round of a
His Sniper
GSL
debuted
stage.
against Impact too.
Yeah, that is true, and ended up working pretty well for him. I'm very excited to see Srtty in his debut. Listening to the interviews that he was able to do on both pros, and then also like just hearing him talk on the draw show, he is very confident in himself, as he always is. But I think it's nice to see him have a little bit of nuance in terms of like, hey, I know there are some parts of my game that I will have to learn and improve on to become the best top laner in the LTA. But I'll still become the best top laner in the LTA.
We know
there's still that cockiness.
We know
there.
how hard Srtty's gonna work for it, bro. Like,
I love
it. The crazy thing is, like, I believe him.
There.
You know, like, that man puts his money where his mouth is.
The DSG series is also one that'll be a little bit interesting for me to watch. Seeing basically ScaryJerry on stage for the first time, with a tier 1 organization, or with an organization that's not a college, actually. This is a player, again, we've really been following for a while. Definitely he wasn't first on my list of players that I was expecting to see promoted, but he was very close to the top of that list. I'm very glad he
was
got
in
this
that
opportunity.
tier.
Yeah, and so I'm sure he's gonna crush it as well. I know AD Carry is a very stacked pool at this point in our region, but I'm confident in Jerry to also bring that same level of confidence that he brought to any interview, any game, any all chat that he came across in his journey in the NACL and CLOL, and bring it to the tier 1 stage.
And I mean, Grapes, like it almost in a way sounds like a knock against Jerry to say like, oh, like AD Carry is such a stacked role in our region or whatever. But like I don't know, man. I think Jerry's one of the reasons why that's true. And like we saw what Masu and Jan have been able to do. I think people are rightfully very excited about him because of sort of the trailblazing that some other people in his role have already done. Well, dude, it's gonna. Fuck! I can't wait for LCS, man. LTAN. I can't wait for LTAN.
We're tied.
Okay.
We're tied.
My bad.
I got one at the start. You got one at the end.
Yeah. This is gonna be great. Oh.
And yeah, I feel like now that there's a direct promotion into the LTA at stake with the Challengers League, we might take a little peek more often than we did in past years. Obviously this week specifically, just because we've been talking about Moise so much, and also just because it's kind of our college send off to some of these guys. We had 2 headlines about it, but we'll talk about that news when it becomes important, specifically for the state of the developmental ecosystem as well. But that's gonna do it for our inaugural Salty Runback episode, Hawk, of season 3. I'm really excited for the year ahead. I know we don't have too much info about what the open qualifier is going to look like just yet, but with things like LTA and CLOL starting this Saturday, still going to be much to talk about. We're going to be back here on Thursday doing some sort of segment. We have some ideas in mind, but also want to keep the door open for any potential breaking news. So make sure you stay tuned and follow all of our Patreons and all the links to our socials down there below as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Stay tuned for any and all news related to all facets of North American League of Legends. We're not just a podcast anymore. We are going to be a production company. Live streams on the horizon once the season kicks off, almost certainly. Stay tuned for extra fun news when Spring Split arrives. Make sure to subscribe on Patreon if you are able. We appreciate you all, though, nonetheless. At Salty Runback NA on all platforms. Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Patreon. Make sure to look us up. And also at Hawkcasts, at Speedy Grapes. But wow, it's the start of season 3. We went a little bit longer with this one. We had some yapping to do at the beginning, but so much good stuff to talk about. Like, I don't know about you, Grapes. Off season, it's actually not even really ending because it's still like sort of off season for the NACL, but
it's a slow trickle into the regular
We're getting
season.
there.
We're getting there, exactly.
We're more than getting there. We're arriving, and I'm like, League of Legends is fun right now, man. So I can't wait. Thanks to everyone that tuned in. Check us out everywhere at Salty Runback NA. But if you think that the LTA is gonna suck this year, you can take what we said with a grain of salt. You're gonna be hearing that hell of a lot more in 2025. I've been Hawk. That's been Grapes. Have a great night, everyone.